And my guest joining me right now, I'm excited to jump into this conversation with her. Gamble Hayden, coordinator at State and Federal Communications Incorporated, and vice chair of the upcoming Women in Government Relations Leadership and Advocacy Conference. I will be speaking at the conference on September the 24th, right here in Washington, D.C. So make sure you go to Women in Government Relations and check out and get registered for the conference and come on out. I'm going to read her bio, which is awesome. And then we're going to jump into some conversation around leadership and what that looks like, leading from the back, leading from the front, and a couple other things I think is interesting about her background I want to jump into. So here we go. Gamble Hayden graduated from Bennett College. I told her we could still be friends. Aggie pride all day. But it's okay. Graduated from Bennett College, one of the premier institutions for African American women, and later earned a graduate degree in liberal arts from Johns Hopkins University. Returning to Washington, D.C. in 1992, she enhanced her expertise with experience at the Chicago Defender and further studies at Cambridge University. Gamble has built a diverse career in trade associations, the pharmaceutical industry, and ethics and lobbying compliance. Currently, she is a key leader at Federal Compliance Services, serving as chair and coordinator for the DEI committee. Additionally, Gamble is a committed member of the board of directors and holds leadership roles as co-chair and vice chair of the PWIA committee. Her work is deeply rooted in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion across her professional and volunteer engagements. Welcome to the show, Gamble.
Thank you, Omi. So great to be here. So great to see you. And I'm so excited to have you at our conference this month later on. So excited to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited about it. And I'm going to be talking about how to communicate your value. And so I think we'll jump right in there because you talked a little bit about leadership and like how you got to women in government relations. So let's back it up a notch and let's talk about that. What was your trajectory like and what was it like? What has your journey been like and what it meant to communicate your value, how you discovered your value even more deeply over the course of your journey?
Thank you, Omi. So I'm going to tell you, it's been an interesting journey for me. We were talking earlier before we went live, and I was saying that I never considered myself or thought of myself as a leader. Well, one day, so I've been a member of Women in Government Relations for a little over 9 years now. And when I first joined the organization by way of my company, State and Federal Communications, company I work for, other than attending just a few events, I wasn't really involved. And I was sort of thinking about ways to get more involved. And I guess the summer of 2017, the then president of Women in Government Relations convened a small focus group of members to talk about not only the lack of diversity within WGR, but also within the larger government affairs arena. So as a result of that focus group, WGR created the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee. So when the committee was formally established in January of 2018, I was thinking, I think I may have found a way to sort of get a little more involved. And so pretty much fast forward to me ascending to a leadership position as a chair of the committee. I'm now on the board of Women in Government Relations, but talking a little bit more about the leadership trajectory, shortly after, I would probably say maybe about a year or a year and a half into me joining WGR, our president and CEO of State and Federal Communications, Elizabeth Bartz, came to me and said, "Hey, WGR has a leadership program. Would you be interested in taking it?" And I really didn't answer her at first. I kind of sat on it for a little while. Well, she came back a couple of more times and asked me. So finally, I said to myself, well, she wants me to take the leadership program. I'll go ahead and take it. But I'm not really a leader. Never considered myself a leader. For me, leadership.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm curious about it. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Maybe you're about to say it now.
No.
Go
I
ahead,
was going to say that I never considered myself a leader. Leadership, to me, was what I saw in other people. But I said, okay, if she wants me to take it, I'll take it. Well, Omi, needless to say, that was the beginning of, I think, my leadership trajectory, my path. It was the best decision I've ever made. It really, WGR has just been so good for me. But that program in particular was the first time that I was awakened to the fact that, no. Yes, you may see leadership in other people, but I myself also project those leadership qualities. So it was very eye-opening for me, needless to say.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I wanna talk about this because there's many people out there, I'm sure, listening who don't consider themselves a leader, right? But we do hear people calling up all the time saying, they're combating misinformation and disinformation wherever they are. They're speaking up. They're exercising their
That's
voice, and
right.
they are rallying community, and I automatically know, in my opinion, no one would look at those people and say they're not leaders. Even the
Mm,
ways that people are willing to call up and exercise their voice around topics. I would say, like, yeah, this person definitely has some leadership. Like, just and maybe that's something I'll start saying to people more often too, even as they call up, because it may not be something that they recognize. But I'm curious for you,
hmm
what, why didn't you think of yourself as a leader? Like, what do you think was that? Was there like childhood experiences, or was there like just not like role? Like,
No,
how did you look at role models? Like, why didn't you consider yourself a leader?
well, I think it was a couple of things, only one of which was I used to really be really introverted. And so that's sort of how I grew up. That's just kind of who I was. And coupled with the fact that my previous employers, my past positions, were primarily administrative. And so I was pretty much the one behind the scenes. I was the one, you know, getting things done, making the trains move on fine. I was fine not being in the spotlight. And I was okay with that. I was happy staying in my lane. And so I think between those two factors was really why I considered myself not to be a leader. Like I never really led anything. Again, I was behind the scenes. And so I just felt that leadership was, again, just what I saw in other
And
people. And
other
I,
people.
yeah, and I thought I was okay
Yeah.
with that. Or so I thought until I started getting the taste of so putting yourself out there and bringing forth leadership qualities, what those things really mean. And so there's no going back for me now.
I think it's interesting too, because where we are as a country in terms of like looking at who are actual leaders.
Mm,
Leadership is not always the person who's out front, right? And I think that one of
absolutely.
the things that's interesting too about like looking at our two presidential nominees is people asking the question, who is my leader? Right? Who leads
Mm,
me? And I think this is deeper than the surface, right?
right,
So we'll look at it and we'll say, maybe Trump isn't the leader for me because he's just too something, right? And it's more like personality centric,
mm-hmm.
on top of like not really understanding what policies or what things he's going to push forward, being too unpredictable. I think that, and then I think when some people look at VP Kamala Harris, they say to themselves, well, she's not a leader for me for
Right,
multiple reasons. And I think that like that's something that we need to get deeper about. I think just in general, because people may be saying like, "Oh, I don't like this thing," and it's very surface thing, like the recent misinformation about the Asian hate crime bill versus a black hate crime bill. Like, oh, she was. There was during the Biden administration, they focused on Asian hate crime, but they didn't focus on black hate crime. And it's like, hey, y'all, we had a whole civil rights era, right? Where all these, where the crime bills for black people were already in place.
right,
But
absolutely.
underneath all that, that's just rhetoric. If we go underneath all that, we're saying, you're actually saying, I don't see this person as a leader for me. And so I'm
Hmm
curious, in your roles as you spent time, in the leadership training that you took, and like in different leadership roles, what are those leadership traits that come forward in
Mm.
you or others that you see, that where people say to themselves, okay, that's the leader for me?
Oh, that's such a great question. So for me, when I look at people and I think, wow, that person's a leader, I see ownership of not only the things that matter to
Mm.
them, but the people that are around them. I see empathy. I see compassion. I see ways and opportunities for the leaders to provide space and opportunity for others around them to work and become leaders as well. I think that is just so important that when you have opportunities to bring people along with you, that you definitely should do so because that's what it's all about. It's about the connections and the allyship and all those things that sort of bring us together as a people. And so when I really think about who great leaders are, that's what I see. And that's what I kind of envision. And that's sort of what's ingrained in me. And I'm like, wow, I definitely want to model these people that I think that are great leaders.
I love that because ownership, empathy, um, opportunity, space and opportunity, and
Yes.
strategy. I put strategy.
Yes.
I'm because I think that there's a place where there is also things like charisma and like like there's things that like being able to inspire others and like there's
Yes.
things about and even in strategy or creativity or innovation these words come out. However,
Hmm.
when I think about presidential nominees, this is why you have a cabinet. So when I think about leaders, this is why you have a team,
Right.
because maybe you aren't the
Absolutely.
most creative, but you take ownership and you have empathy and you provide space and opportunity for other leaders.
That's right.
Providing space and opportunity for the other leaders is huge because you don't want to be the smartest, quote unquote, smartest person at that table. You want to be able to provide an opportunity for all. And so I want to talk a little bit about DEI.
Yes.
There's a huge attack on DEI right now. And what are you hearing or seeing happen behind the scenes in the shifts? Are you seeing
Mm.
the shifts in language, shifts in, are people sort of trying to be more careful, or are people raging and like, nah, we're gonna stand 10 toes down? What are you actually seeing behind the scenes
Wow. Yeah, the
that you can speak on, I guess?
right, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I can tell you, so if in the spaces that I am, it's so interesting because I've told many people that have come my way that to me, I'm not going to sit here and have, general conversations with you about just race and gender. Because I think when people hear diversity, equity, inclusion, I think that's what they automatically think. Oh, here's another conversation about
100%.
race and gender. Right.
Yeah.
And so what I tell people is where obviously, whereas those things are very important to to the cause and the discussion, to me, diversity, equity, inclusion is everything that makes you who you are. All your lived experiences, all the things that you've been through, everything. So that's what diversity, equity, inclusion means for me. And so it's very disheartening to hear the continuous attacks on DEI because what I also tell people is, no one's trying to take anything away from anyone. We're just trying to include everyone in the conversation and at the table. And so I think for those of us that are sort of walking in the DEI space, there are times when we feel like, okay, I'm not sure if what I'm doing is making a difference. But I think we realize that, first of all, there are no one and done efforts when it comes to DEI. DEI to me is a lifelong journey of engagement and reflection and connection and empowerment and allyship. And again, all these things that we talk about. And so it's I think it's really hard to try to not become, and I've used this term before, DEI fatigued, and as you
Hmm.
will. And so I just one of the things I also tell people is celebrate the wins, no matter how small you may think they might be, celebrate them. Create that bank that whether that means you're meeting someone different, you're learning something new, you're encountering something new and exciting. Bank all of that because these are the experiences that you're going to back into when you find yourself becoming fatigued.
Yeah, I think, it's disheartening to see the ban on DEI and disheartening to, see people, suing people who are geared towards serving people of color. I think also for me in the DEI conversation, I think people get the word diversity, people get the word inclusion. Somehow, what's lost? The equity part. Like, okay,
Mm,
well,
mm.
hey, what about the equity part? What about the E? We said diversity, equity, and inclusion.
That's right.
So, so it's like diversity immediately signals gender and race. Inclusion immediately signals, I think, LGBTQ or
Mm,
people that feel like been outliers. So it's
hmm.
like people separate them in that way. They look at like, oh, well, like diversity means gender and race. And
Hmm.
honestly, let's keep it 100. Diversity means black and white. So like, and
Ah,
that's something that we need
yes,
to talk through because our country hasn't gotten
absolutely.
over that. right? And like, so when we talk
Right.
about the need for reparations or healing points, we don't bring back that, hey, y'all, these things are happening because honestly, we still viewing our country as so black and white. But
Absolutely.
there's more than just black people and white people here, by the way. Hey, hello.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
So there's that.
Yes.
But then there's the inclusion means like, oh, so we got black and white people being had about diversity. The inclusion part is like, oh, now we need to include people that we didn't include before because we didn't agree with them because of our morals. So that's where you
Mm-hmm.
get the LGBTQIA plus folks. Oh, we need to include them now. Oh, we need to include people that now we need to include different gender different gender identities. Oh, we need to
Mm-hmm.
include people with disabilities. Oh, we need to include people like this. The people that people have in their heads othered
Right.
is now
Absolutely.
is now where the word inclusion comes in. But
Mm-hmm.
people keep
Mm-hmm.
missing the equity part. Which is like, have you ever
Yes.
seen that picture where it's like a bunch of people standing at a fence and it's like diversity inclusion is like everybody gets a stool, but it's like actually equity is everybody gets the stool that is the height for them to actually look over the fence. Like that is the piece that we're
Yes.
missing. You
Yes.
know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
So
So
yeah.
true, Omi. So true.
Well, the conference is coming up. What would you want the
Yes.
audience to know about the conference?
Yes, yes. Thank you again for giving me an opportunity to highlight. So, yes, this is Women in Government Relations Leadership and Advocacy Conference. Looking forward to it. It's going to be held September 24th and 25th right here in DC. So I tell you, I'm really just so excited about this conference. We have actually four tracks, public affairs and communications, public policy and government affairs, PACs and grassroots, and a professional development track. So I feel like we have a little bit of something for everyone. And so I just invite folks to come out. We're going to have great speakers like Omi herself will be. I'm very excited to hear her. And we're also going to have our Excellence in Advocacy Awards that will take place the evening of the 24th. So again, just so excited to have folks come out. I'm so excited to be vice chairing it. I will also mention one other session that I'm really excited about. So usually at the close of our conference, our final session is what we call Been There, Done That. And we're going to have that session again this year, but we're going to have a little bit of a twist on it. And we're going to talk about it from the focus and the impact of civility and civil discourse, or lack thereof. So we're going to talk about civility in politics and the way things used to be when bipartisanship was a thing. And that's something that's
Mm.
out of style now. And so, yes, we are excited to have actually that session moderated by State and Federal Communications President and CEO extraordinaire Elizabeth Bartz, and she will be in conversation with the House Civility co-chairs, Representative Mike Carey, Representative Joyce Beatty, both of Ohio, and again, just talk about bipartisanship in the House, how things used to be, and how we can sort of get back to that. Because I just really feel like we have really gone off um, sort of the deep end when it comes to not being able to have civil discourse and civil conversation. So I'm really excited about that panel. But yes, everybody, come on out. We would love to have you.
Thank you so much for joining me. Gamble Hayden, coordinator at the State and Federal Communications Inc., vice chair of the upcoming Women in Government Relations Leadership and Advocacy Conference. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.